Billionaire last dying wish is to see the black old maid. What happened changed everything. The machines breathed for him now, each mechanical wheeze marking another second stolen from death. James Whitfield, titan of industry, builder of empires, reducer of companies to profitable rubble, lay dwarfed by his hospital bed, his body finally as fragile as the lives he'd carelessly reorganized on spreadsheets. "Mr. Whitfield, you need to rest," the nurse said, adjusting his oxygen. She was young, efficient, treating him like any other patient. He almost appreciated the indifference. "Rest," he muttered, the word bitter on his cracked lips. 78 years of relentless motion, and now they wanted him to rest. His eyes found the window where Manhattan sparkled below, each light representing someone else's ambition, someone else's dream. He'd owned pieces of all of it once. The morphine made everything soft at the edges, but one image remained sharp. A woman's face from 40 years ago, dark skin gleaming with sweat as she scrubbed his marble floors. Not just any woman. Dolores. The name surfaced from depths he'd thought permanently sealed. "Hello, family. Welcome to my channel. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please click that subscribe button. Like and share this story with someone who would to listen to this kind of uplifting story. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and how this touched you." "Sir." His assistant, Kevin, hovered at the doorway. "The lawyers are here about the will." James waved them away. The will was done, the fortune distributed, the legacy secured. Everything except the one debt that no amount of money could settle. "Find her," he whispered. Kevin leaned closer. "Sir. Dolores Washington. She worked for me. 1983 to 1985. Find her." Across the city, in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled of lavender and old photographs, Dolores Washington sat at her kitchen table, sorting pills into a weekly organizer. Sunday through Saturday, morning and evening, the ritual of aging laid out in pharmaceutical precision. At 72, her hands remained steady, her back straight despite the years of bending, lifting, scrubbing. She'd learned long ago that dignity wasn't granted, it was maintained, one small act at a time. The radio hummed gospel while she worked, Mahalia Jackson's voice filling the spaces between her thoughts. On the wall, photographs told her story. Nursing school graduation, 1969. Her daughter's wedding, 1995. Her grandson's first birthday, 2018. A life fully lived, even if the world hadn't always bothered to notice. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Too many scams these days targeting seniors. But something, maybe the Holy Spirit, maybe just curiosity, made her pick up. "Ms. Dolores Washington?" "Speaking." "Ma'am, my name is Kevin Chen. I'm calling on behalf of James Whitfield. He's very ill, and he's specifically asked to see you." The pill organizer slipped from her fingers, Tuesday's evening medications scattering across the linoleum. James Whitfield. She hadn't spoken that name aloud in decades, but it had lived in her chest like a stone, heavy and undigested. "Ma'am, are you there?" "I'm here," she said, her voice steady as her hands. "What does he want?" "He said it's urgent. He's at Mount Sinai, and the doctors say he doesn't have long." Dolores closed her eyes. 40 years of silence, and now this. "I'll think about it." She hung up before he could respond, then knelt carefully to collect the scattered pills. Each one returned to its proper compartment, order restored. But her hands trembled now, and Mahalia's voice couldn't quite drown out the memory of marble floors and the sound of a door closing on her dreams. What shapes our first impressions of people? Their circumstances or their character? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The hospital corridor stretched before Dolores like a tunnel through time. Her sensible shoes clicked against the polished floor, each step a small act of courage. She'd dressed carefully, her good navy dress, The pearl earrings her daughter had given her, a touch of lipstick. Armor against whatever waited in room 4012. Kevin met her at the elevator, all nervous energy and expensive suit. "Ms. Washington, thank you for coming. He's been asking every hour." She followed him, noting how the walls grew more expensive with each floor. Better art, softer lighting, the gradual transition from public hospital to private privilege. Outside the room, she paused. Through the glass, she could see him, or what remained of him. The James Whitfield of her memory had been volcanic, filling rooms with his presence, his voice booming orders that sent assistants scurrying. This man looked like someone had let all the air out, leaving only loose skin and regret. "I'll wait here," she said. "He's expecting." "I said I'll wait." The steel in her voice surprised them both. Kevin retreated. Dolores stood at the glass, studying the man who'd altered the trajectory of her life with a single accusation. His eyes were closed, machines tracking the stuttering rhythm of his heart. She could walk away now. She'd come, she'd seen, debt paid. Then his eyes opened and found hers through the glass. The shock of recognition hit them both like cold water. His mouth moved, shaping her name. She watched his hand rise, trembling, beckoning. Not commanding, asking. She entered slowly, the antiseptic smell mixing with something else, something animal and final. Death had its own scent, she'd learned, sitting with enough church members in their last days. Dolores. Her name came out broken, like he'd been practicing and still gotten it wrong. She sat in the visitor's chair, back straight, hands folded. Waited. You came. You asked. Silence stretched between them, 40 years compressed into seconds. His eyes, she noticed, were the same piercing blue, but filmed now with medication and tears. "The silver," he said finally. "The sterling silver tea service." Her jaw tightened. Even now, even dying, he'd bring that up. "I didn't take it. I know." The words hung in the air like a revelation. She leaned forward slightly. "What?" "I've known for 37 years. My son. He took it. Sold it for drug money. We found the pawn slip after he died." His voice cracked. "I knew within a month of firing you." The room tilted. Dolores gripped the chair arms, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "You knew. I was too proud. Too afraid. You'd already filed the wrongful termination suit. My lawyers said to let it go, that admitting fault would open us to liability." He turned his head toward her, the effort visible. "I let them convince me. I let my pride. God, Dolores, I'm so sorry." Sorry. She tested the word, found it insufficient. "I was in nursing school. Part-time maid work was paying my tuition. When you fired me, accused me of theft, no one would hire me. Not with that hanging over me." "I know." "No." The word came out sharp. "You don't know. You don't know what it's like to have your word mean nothing because of the color of your skin and the uniform you wear. You don't know what it's like to watch your dreams dissolve because someone needed a scapegoat." She was standing now, decades of suppressed anger rising like floodwater. "I had to drop out. Took me 10 years to save enough to go back, and by then I was a single mother working 3 jobs. You took my future and crumpled it up like paper." "Yes." No excuses, no justifications. Just acknowledgement. "And now you're dying and you want, what? Forgiveness. To clear your conscience before you meet your maker." He struggled to sit up, reached for the oxygen mask when his breathing grew labored. She found herself moving forward, adjusting it with practiced hands. Their eyes met over the mask, and she saw something that stopped her cold. Love. Not romantic, not yet, but something deeper. The recognition of one soul seeing another clearly for the first time. In his eyes lived not just regret but genuine seeing, the kind that comes when all pretense has been stripped away. "I want to make it right," he said when he could speak again. "Whatever that means, whatever it takes." Not for my conscience. For you. Because you deserved better. Because you deserve everything. She sank back into the chair, the fight leaving her as suddenly as it had come. It's too late for everything. Is it? He reached out, his hand stopping inches from hers, asking permission. I have maybe weeks, maybe days. But I have resources, connections. Let me try to give back what I took. Please. The moment stretched, fragile as spun glass. Then slowly she placed her hand over his. His skin felt paper-thin, but warm. Alive, for now. All right, she whispered. We'll see. Dolores stood at her kitchen sink the next morning, scrubbing the same cup for the third time. Sleep had eluded her, chased away by the memory of James Whitfield's hand under hers. Warm, fragile, human. She'd left the hospital making no promises, but his assistant had pressed a card into her hand with direct numbers and "please call any time," and an urgency that suggested time was measured in heartbeats, not days. Her daughter Anita's voice filled the apartment from the speakerphone. Mama, you did what now? I went to see him. He's dying. The man who ruined your life is dying, and you went to see him? Lord, Mama, sometimes I don't understand you. Dolores dried the cup slowly, placing it in its proper spot. Everything in its place, order maintained against chaos. He wants to make amends. 40 years too late. Yes. So why did you go? The question she'd been avoiding all night. Why had she gone? Curiosity, closure, or something else, something that whispered in the quiet moments between heartbeats? I don't know, baby. Maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. You. Soft. Mama, you're the strongest woman I know. You don't owe that man nothing. After Anita hung up, Dolores sat at her table, the business cards centered on the placemat like evidence in a trial. Kevin Chen, executive assistant. The embossed letters spoke of money, power, a world she'd glimpsed but never entered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Washington? It's Kevin. I'm sorry to bother you, but Mr. Whitfield had a difficult night. He's stable now, but he keeps asking if you're coming back. That's not my concern. Of course. I apologize. It's just, he's refusing some of his medications. The doctors are concerned. Then maybe his doctors should talk to him about it. A pause. He says he won't take them until he speaks with you again. That's manipulation, Mr. Chen. Yes, ma'am, it probably is. But it's also the first time in months he's fought for anything. The nurses say he was different after your visit. More present. Dolores closed her eyes. Even dying, the man was trying to control the narrative. I'll think about it. Thank you. And Ms. Washington? He asked me to research what happened after you left his employment. I have some information if you'd like. No. The word came out sharp. Whatever you found in those files, that's my life, not his. He doesn't get to know what came after. Not yet. She hung up and busied herself with laundry, grocery shopping, Wednesday night Bible study preparation. Normal life, ordered life, a life built carefully from the rubble of dreams. But throughout the day, she found herself thinking of his eyes, how they'd looked when he said he knew. 37 years of knowing and saying nothing. In his hospital bed, James fought the pull of medication. The pain was a living thing now, crawling through his bones like fire ants, but pain meant consciousness, and consciousness meant the possibility she might return. You need to take these, Dr. Patel said, holding out the small paper cup of pills. Later. Mr. Whitfield, the pain management protocol. I said later. The bark of command still worked, even diminished. The doctor retreated. Kevin appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Sir, the Matthews acquisition papers need. Sell it. Sir. The Matthews deal. Kill it. Sell everything. Kevin's fingers froze over the tablet. Everything. The companies, the properties, the art. Liquidate it all. Sir, that's your entire portfolio. The board will. The board can find another dying billionaire to worship. I want cash. Liquid assets. For the foundation? James turned his head, stared at the ceiling tiles. 40 years ago, Dolores Washington had stared at a different ceiling, wondering how she'd pay rent after he'd destroyed her reputation. He'd learned that from Kevin's research. The eviction notices, the food stamps, the night shifts at the factory that broke her body while she saved pennies for nursing school. No. Something else. Something better. I don't understand. You don't need to. Just do it. Kevin left, and James was alone with the machines and his thoughts. She'd been 25 when she'd worked for him. Young, brilliant, going places until he'd slammed that door. Now they were both old, both running out of time, but maybe... No. He couldn't think like that. She'd made it clear, this wasn't about forgiveness or friendship, certainly not about whatever his traitorous heart was suggesting. This was about justice, long delayed. But when he closed his eyes, he saw her hand covering his, felt the calluses from decades of work he'd made necessary. And beneath the guilt, beneath the regret, something else stirred. Something that had no business in the chest of a dying man who'd forfeited any right to hope. His phone rang. The private line only 3 people had. Hello. Don't you dare use your illness to manipulate me. Dolores's voice, sharp as winter wind. I'm not. You are. But I'm coming anyway. Tomorrow. 1 hour. And you'll take your medications like the doctors tell you, or I'm walking right back out. Understood. Yes, ma'am. A pause. Then softer. Are you in pain? Yes. Then take the damn pills, James. Pain doesn't make you noble. It just makes you stupid. She hung up before he could respond. James reached for the call button, summoned the nurse with the medication. As the pills dissolved under his tongue, he smiled for the first time in months. She'd called him James. Not Mr. Whitfield. James. It was probably nothing. A slip of the tongue. But he held on to it anyway, a small warmth against the cold that was coming. The storm hit Manhattan like a fist, turning the October afternoon into premature night. Dolores stood at the hospital entrance, watching sheets of rain transform the street into a river. The weather app showed no break for hours. Flash flood warnings, subway delays, the city grinding to a halt. Ms. Washington? Kevin appeared with an umbrella. Mr. Whitfield asked me to wait for you. I can drive you home after. I take the subway. It's flooded. Most lines are down. He gestured to the chaos outside. Please, let me at least get you somewhere safe after your visit. Thunder crashed, making the decision for her. She nodded, followed him to the elevator. The lights flickered as they rose, the building's generators humming to life. James was awake, watching the storm through his window. He turned as she entered, and she saw he'd kept his promise. The 4 drips showed he'd taken his pain medication. You came. Said I would. She settled into what was becoming her chair, noticed someone had left a cushion on it. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. This weather's something else. They're saying it might last all night. The bridges are all ready. He stopped, seeing her expression. You're stranded. I'll manage. The cafeteria closes at 8. And these chairs. He shifted, winced. There's a family suite down the hall. 4 long-term patients' relatives. It's empty. I'm not your relative. No. He studied her face. You're not. Lightning illuminated the room in stark relief, throwing shadows that made him look even more fragile. The power flickered again, stayed off for 3 heartbeats before returning. Tell me about nursing school, he said suddenly. Before. When you were taking classes. She stiffened. Why? Because I realized I know nothing about you. I employed you for 2 years, and I know nothing except how well you polished silver. That's all you needed to know then. It's not all I need to know now. The rain hammered against the window, sealing them in. Dolores found herself speaking, surprising them both. Anatomy was my favorite. Learning how the body worked, all the systems connected. Like a puzzle, but one that made sense. She smiled slightly. I was good at it. Top of my class. Were you going to specialize? Pediatrics. I wanted to work with children. The smile faded. Ended up working with them anyway, just not how I planned. Daycare, mostly. Some home health aid work when Anita got older. Your daughter. My daughter. Pride crept into her voice. She's a teacher now. High school biology. Says I taught her to love science. You did get to teach, then. In a way. They sat quietly, the storm creating a strange intimacy. The hospital sound seemed distant, muffled by rain and the odd bubble of connection forming between them. I have a son, James said. Had. Michael. The one who took the silver. Yes. He was an addict by 15. We tried everything. Rehab, therapy, tough love, unconditional love. Nothing worked. His voice dropped. He died at 23. Overdose. I'm sorry. I blamed everyone. The dealers, his friends, myself. But mostly I blamed people like, he stopped, shame coloring his face. People like me. The help. The ones who must have introduced him to it, because surely it couldn't have come from his world. Yes. Is that why you were so quick to believe I stole? Partly. Also because. He struggled with the words. Because you were going places. I could see it. You had this light, this purpose. And some part of me, some small, petty part, resented it. The admission hung between them like a third presence. Dolores felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding maybe. That's ugly, she said finally. Yes. But honest. I'm trying to be. The lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. A nurse appeared, checking on James, assuring them the generators would handle life support. I should go, Dolores said. Where? The elevators are on emergency power only. The stairs are locked down. He pressed the call button. Please. Ask about the family suite. Just until the storm passes. Pride warred with practicality. She was 72 years old, trapped in a hospital in a blackout. When the nurse confirmed the suite was available and the storm showed no signs of stopping, Dolores accepted with grudging grace. I'll check on you in the morning, she said. Dolores. She paused at the door. Thank you. For coming back. For talking. Don't read too much into it. I'm just stuck here like everyone else. But as she walked to the suite, small but clean, with a bed and kitchenette, she knew that wasn't entirely true. She could have waited in the lobby, could have called Anita to fuss and worry, could have maintained the wall between them. Instead, she'd told him about anatomy class. About loving the puzzle of bodies, the miracle of how hearts kept beating against all odds. In his room, James lay in the red-tinged darkness, listening to the storm and thinking about light. How some people carried it naturally, how others spent their lives trying to snuff it out in others because they couldn't generate their own. He'd been the second type. Had built an empire on being the second type. But now, in these final days, with Dolores's presence like an unexpected grace, he wondered if even the smallest spark could be rekindled. The pain was coming back, but he waited before calling the nurse. The pain meant he was alive, meant tomorrow might come, meant he might see her again. Outside, the storm raged on, keeping them both suspended in this strange, temporary world where billionaires and maids could sit together and speak truth in the darkness. How do we bridge the gaps between who we were and who we're trying to become? Share with us your thoughts in the comments below. Morning came gray and waterlogged, the storm reduced to drizzle but leaving destruction in its wake. Dolores woke in the unfamiliar suite, disoriented until the antiseptic smell reminded her where she was. She'd slept deeply, surprisingly so, as if the storm had washed away more than just the city's grime. She found James sitting up in bed, papers spread across his lap despite the oxygen tube. Kevin hovered nearby, clearly distressed. "Sir, the lawyers need. They can wait." James looked up as she entered. "How did you sleep?" "Fine. You look busy for a dying man." "Dying doesn't mean dead." "Not yet." He gestured to the papers. "I'm redistributing assets." "Kevin thinks I've lost my mind." "Have you?" "Possibly." He studied her. "I've been thinking about your anatomy classes. About systems and connections. I built my fortune on breaking those connections. You know, corporate raiding. Find a company, identify its weaknesses, tear it apart, sell the pieces. Sounds lonely. It was efficient." He shuffled the papers, and she caught sight of figures that made her head spin. Millions, billions, numbers that meant nothing in her world. "I was very good at taking things apart. Less good at putting them together." Kevin's phone buzzed. He stepped out to answer it, leaving them alone. "There's something else," James said. "About that time. About why I was so angry then." Dolores sat, waited. She'd learned patience in 1,000 waiting rooms, 1,000 nights sitting with the sick. "My wife had just left. Took half of everything, which was fair, but also took." He stopped, started again. "We'd been trying for children for years. She was pregnant when she left. Said she didn't want to raise a child with someone who cared more about money than people." "Did she have the baby?" "A daughter. Sophie. I got photos once a year until she turned 18, then nothing. I hired investigators, but Margaret had remarried, moved to Europe. Sophie took her stepfather's name." His hands trembled on the papers. "I found out last year she died. Cancer. She was 41. Had 2 children I'll never meet." The weight of it settled between them. Dolores thought of Anita, of Sunday dinners and grandchildren's laughter, of all the small moments that made a life. "I'm sorry," she said, meaning it. "I was unraveling when you worked for me. Drinking too much, angry at everyone. When the silver went missing, you were just there. An easy target for all that rage." "That doesn't excuse it." "No, it doesn't." He looked at her directly. "Nothing excuses it. I'm not trying to justify, just explain. You asked once why I was so quick to believe. That's why. I needed someone to blame for everything falling apart, and you were convenient. And black. And female. And poor. Yes. All of that too." She appreciated that he didn't try to deny it, didn't pretend race hadn't played a role. The truth sat between them, ugly but acknowledged. "Tell me about your husband," he said suddenly. "Anita's father." The shift surprised her. "Why?" "Because I realized last night I've been talking about myself, my pain, my regrets. But you had a whole life I know nothing about." Dolores found herself smiling slightly. "Robert. We met at church. He was a bus driver, steady work, good benefits. Not romantic maybe, but solid." "Were you happy?" "For a while. Until he decided being married was too much responsibility. Left when Anita was 3. She shrugged. "Another man who couldn't handle a woman going places." "You raised her alone?" "Me and God and a village of church ladies who wouldn't let me fail." Pride crept into her voice. "She never went hungry. Always had clean clothes, even if they were secondhand. Got her degree without any debt. Because you sacrificed. Because that's what mothers do." James was quiet for a long moment. "I never learned that. The sacrifice part. Always thought providing meant writing checks." Money helps. But it's not everything. No. He gathered the papers, handed them to her. Which is why I want you to have this. Dolores looked at the top sheet, saw her name and a number that couldn't be real. What is this? A trust. Irrevocable. It's yours regardless of what happens between us. Between us. She set the papers down without looking at the rest. There is no us. I know. I meant, whether you forgive me or not, whether you keep visiting or not. This is what you think I want. Money. It's what I owe you. 40 years of compound interest on a stolen future. She stood abruptly. You can't buy forgiveness, James. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to make restitution. There's a difference. Is there? He struggled to sit up straighter, the effort visible. You told me you wanted to help children. There's enough there to build a clinic. Or fund scholarships. Or whatever you want. It's not forgiveness I'm after. It's justice. Late, but still justice. She looked at him, this dying man trying to balance scales that could never truly be balanced. And what do you get out of it? Nothing. That's the point. For once in my life, I want to give something without calculating the return. The honesty of it stopped her. She picked up the papers again, saw Kevin's notes in the margins, scholarship funds, clinic proposals, all dated yesterday. They'd worked through the storm to put this together. I need to think, she said finally. Of course. But, Dolores, this isn't conditional. The money is yours whether you ever speak to me again or not. She left without responding, but took the papers with her. In the elevator, she allowed herself to look at the full amount. Enough to change not just her life but Anita's, her grandchildren's. Enough to build something lasting. But money wasn't what made her hands shake as she held those papers. It was the realization that he'd listened, really listened, when she talked about pediatrics, about helping children. After 40 years, someone had finally heard not just her words but her dreams. 3 days passed before Dolores returned. She found James weaker, the cancer-claiming territory with each hour, but his eyes brightened when she entered. I thought you weren't coming back. I wasn't. She set a container on his bedside table. But then I made too much soup. He laughed, a sound like rustling leaves. What kind? Chicken and rice. The kind that fixes things. She produced a thermos and spoon. Can you manage? I haven't eaten real food in days. Hospital food doesn't count as real. She helped him sit up, noticed how his hands shook. Without asking, she took the spoon. Don't get used to this. Wouldn't dream of it. She fed him slowly, small spoonfuls between his labored breaths. The intimacy of it should have been awkward, feeding the man who derailed her life, but instead felt strangely natural. Necessary, even. This is incredible, he murmured. Secret is the bay leaf. And time. Can't rush good soup. My mother used to make soup when I was sick. His eyes went distant. Before the money, when we lived in Queens. Tiny kitchen, always something simmering. Tell me about her. Irish immigrant. Cleaned houses like. He caught himself. Like me. You can say it. She would have liked you. She had opinions about everything, especially rich people who forgot where they came from. He managed another spoonful. She died before I made my first million. Probably best. She wouldn't have liked what I became. Maybe not what, but still who. Mothers are like that. They sat quietly while she helped him finish what he could manage. Outside, the October sun painted the city gold, all evidence of the storm washed away except for the deeper clean it left behind. I signed the papers, she said suddenly. The trust. Anita thinks I'm crazy. What do you think? I think. She capped the thermos, choosing words carefully. I think you're trying. And maybe that matters more than being perfect at it. I'm running out of time to get better at it. Then you better learn fast. He smiled at that, and she found herself smiling back. When had this become easy, sitting with him? When had the anger softened into something else? Tell me about the clinic, he said. The one you'd build. Who says I'm building a clinic? Kevin found your old application to Columbia's nurse practitioner program. From 1987. She stiffened. You had no right. I didn't ask him to. He did it on his own. Said if we were going to fix things, we should know what needed fixing. He reached out, not quite touching her hand. You applied 3 times. Got in twice but couldn't afford it. Ancient history. Is it? The way you helped me eat just now, checking my breathing between bites, monitoring my color. You never stopped being a nurse, did you? Tears threatened, surprising her. Caregiving is caregiving. Doesn't matter if it's in a hospital or a home. It matters. You matter. The words hung between them, simple but weighted. She looked at this dying man who'd taken so much but was trying, in these final days, to give something back. Not just money, anyone could write a check. But seeing. Recognition. Acknowledgement of who she'd been and who she still was. The clinic would be in Brooklyn, she heard herself say. Where I live. Kids there need somewhere to go that isn't the emergency room. Somewhere their mothers can afford. Tell me more. So she did. Talked about preventive care and community health, about catching problems early when they could still be fixed. He listened with the same intensity he'd probably once reserved for acquisition targets, asking questions that showed he understood more than she'd expected. You've thought about this for years, he said when she finally wound down. Thinking is free. Not anymore. He shifted, winced. We could break ground by spring. Kevin has contacts. James. His name still felt foreign on her tongue. You won't be here in spring. The truth of it settled over them like dust. He nodded slowly. No. But you will. The clinic will. Why does it matter so much to you? He was quiet so long she thought he might have dozed off. Then, because I spent 60 years building things that only mattered on paper. Stock prices, profit margins, numbers that meant nothing to real people. His voice dropped. I want to leave something that matters. And maybe I want you to think of me sometimes without anger. I already do. The admission surprised them both. She busied herself packing up the soup containers, not meeting his eyes. Dolores. Could you stay a while? Not to talk about clinics or the past or anything heavy. Just stay. She should go. Should maintain boundaries. Protect herself. Instead, she settled back into her chair. What would you like to talk about? Anything. Everything. Tell me about your grandson. So she did. Talked about Marcus Jr.'s obsession with dinosaurs, how he could name every period and pronounce words that twisted her tongue. James laughed at her impression of a 4-year-old explaining the difference between herbivores and carnivores with utter seriousness. He sounds brilliant. Gets it from his grandmother. She said it lightly, but he caught the pride underneath. Obviously. They talked until the afternoon shadows grew long, conversation meandering like a lazy river. She learned he'd played piano as a child until his father declared it impractical. He learned she sang alto in the church choir but really wanted to sing soprano. Small things, human things, the details that make a person real instead of just a role. Billionaire, maid, villain, victim. When the nurse came for evening medications, Dolores stood to leave. Tomorrow? James asked, and she heard the hope he tried to hide. Maybe. If I don't have too much soup again. I'll hope for leftovers then. At the door, she turned back. He looked smaller against the white sheets, but something in his face had changed. Softer, maybe. Or just more present, as if he'd finally stopped looking past the moment to some future that wouldn't come. James, your mother would have been proud of the clinic idea. His eyes filled. Thank you. She left quickly, before the moment could become too heavy. But in the elevator, she found herself humming an old hymn about grace and second chances. For the first time in 40 years, the stone in her chest felt lighter. Not gone, but shifting, making room for something else to grow alongside the old hurt. What allows us to see past someone's worst moment to find their humanity? Share your story with us in the comments below. The call came at 3 a.m., 2 weeks after the soup. Dolores fumbled for her phone, already knowing from the hour that something was wrong. Ms. Washington? It's Kevin. There's been a complication. Mr. Whitfield is asking for you. What kind of complication? His son arrived. His son is dead. His other son. From his second marriage. Richard. Dolores was already reaching for clothes. I'll be there in an hour. The hospital at night felt different. Skeleton crew, dimmed lights, the sense of life suspended. She found chaos in James's room. A younger man, maybe 50, expensive suit and harder eyes, stood between James and Kevin. Not signing anything in this condition, the man was saying. My lawyers will have a field day with this. Deathbed manipulation, taking advantage of a sick man. Richard. James's voice was barely a whisper. Please. Don't please me. You cut me off 20 years ago, remember? Said I was just like Michael, just another disappointment. Now you're giving away my inheritance to, he turned, noticed Dolores. His eyes narrowed. You must be her. The maid. Dolores Washington. She kept her voice level. The one he's giving $30 million to? For what, exactly? Services rendered. Richard. James struggled to sit up. Monitors alarming. What? I'm supposed to pretend this is normal? You fired her 40 years ago and now suddenly she's worth more than your own son. You don't understand. I understand plenty. Guilty conscience and a pretty nurse batting her eyelashes. Enough. Dolores stepped forward. You want to be angry? Be angry at your father. But you will not speak about me like I'm not standing right here. Richard laughed, ugly and sharp. Oh, she's got backbone. Is that what this is about, Dad? You always did like the ones who talked back. Mom said. Your mother left because I was a bastard, James interrupted, his voice stronger with anger. Just like you're being now. At least I'm your bastard. Your blood. That used to mean something. Blood. James's face flushed dangerously. You want to talk about blood? Where were you when I was diagnosed? Where were you the last 6 months while I've been dying? Building the company you abandoned. Someone had to. The company I built on destroying people like her. He pointed at Dolores, his hand shaking. You want your inheritance? There it is. A fortune made on broken backs and stolen futures. Take it, Dad. But not 1 penny meant for her. Not 1 cent of what I owe. Richard turned to Dolores, his smile cold. He owes you. For what? Cleaning his toilets. My father seems to have forgotten that servants get wages, not windfalls. The word, servants, hit like a slap. Dolores felt 40 years collapse into nothing. She was 25 again, being accused, dismissed, discarded. You know what? She grabbed her purse. You're right. This was a mistake. Dolores, wait. James reached for her. No. Your son is right. What am I doing here? Playing nursemaid to the man who ruined my life? For what? Money I didn't ask for? Some deathbed redemption that changes nothing. The words poured out, years of suppressed anger finding voice. You think soup and conversation erase 40 years? Think because you finally see me as human, that fixes everything. I don't. You don't get to die with a clear conscience, James. That's not how this works. Your son wants his money? Give it to him. I survived without it for 40 years. I'll keep surviving. She moved toward the door, but James's next words stopped her cold. I love you. The room went silent except for the machines. Richard's mouth fell open. Kevin dropped his tablet. Dolores turned slowly. What? I love you. James's eyes were clear despite the pain. Not 40 years ago. I didn't know you then. Now. These weeks. The soup, the stories, the way you hum when you think I'm sleeping. I'm dying and it's too late, and you deserve better than a broken old man's feelings, but I love you. You. She couldn't form words. This is insane, Richard exploded. You've known her for 2 weeks. Shut up. Dolores didn't look at him, kept her eyes on James. You don't get to love me. You don't get to drop that on me now, when you're dying, when it's safe because you'll never have to follow through. I know. It's manipulation. Maybe. It's selfish. Yes. It's. Her voice broke. It's the cruelest thing you've done yet. Because part of me. She stopped, shook her head. No. I won't do this. I can't. She fled, Richard's voice following her down the hall. Something about mental competency and undue influence. In the elevator, she pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and tried to breathe. Love. He'd said love. Not guilt, not obligation, not even friendship. Love. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was the traitorous flutter in her chest that whispered maybe, just maybe, she felt something too. Something that had grown between soup and stories, between anger and understanding. But love. Now, after everything, her phone buzzed. Kevin, he's refusing treatment again. Says there's no point anymore. She deleted the message. Let Richard deal with his father. Let them fight over money and meaning. She was done being anyone's redemption story. But as she stood on the dark street, looking for a taxi, she found herself remembering his eyes when he said it. Clear and certain, like a man who'd finally found truth worth telling. Damn you, James Whitfield, she whispered to the night. Damn you for making this complicated. For 3 days, Dolores didn't answer her phone. She went through the motions, church, grocery shopping, lunch with Anita, but everything felt muted, like living underwater. The trust paperwork sat on her kitchen table, unsigned pages worth millions that might as well be blank paper. Mama, you're not yourself, Anita said over coffee. What happened? Nothing. Everything. Dolores stared into her cup. He said he loves me. The billionaire. The one who. Yes. Anita sat back. Oh. That's all. Oh. What do you want me to say? That it's crazy? It is. That it's too late? It is. That you've been humming more in 2 weeks than I've heard in years? That's true too. I haven't been humming. Mama. You've been humming. You made his favorite soup without knowing how you knew it was his favorite, and you look at your phone every 5 minutes. Anita reached across the table, took her mother's hands. What are you really afraid of? Being a fool. Being the help who fell for the boss's deathbed confession. Being. She struggled for words. Being seen as someone who could be bought. Is that what this is? You being bought? No. Maybe. I don't know. She pulled her hands free. His son thinks so. Probably everyone will think so. Since when do you care what everyone thinks? Since always. You think it was easy, being the black maid accused of theft? You think I didn't feel every stare, every whisper for years after. And you survived it. Built a life despite it. Anita leaned forward. Mama, you're the strongest person I know. But sometimes strength means being vulnerable too. With him. After everything. I'm not saying forgive and forget. I'm saying, What do you want? Not what's proper or safe or what people will think. What do you want? That night, Dolores sat with the unsigned papers and her phone. Kevin had stopped calling after the 10th unanswered message. She'd Googled James once, found a business article with his photo. Younger, harder, the man who destroyed her life. But that wasn't who lay dying now. That man was gone, replaced by someone who listened to stories about dinosaurs and cried over soup. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Ms. Washington? This is Dr. Patel at Mount Sinai. You're listed as Mr. Whitfield's healthcare proxy. I'm what? He changed it last week. His son is contesting, but currently you have medical decision authority. Ms. Washington, he's declining rapidly. He's refusing interventions that could give him more time. Days, maybe a week. Why? He says there's no point. That the only person he wants to see won't come. That's not my responsibility. No, it's not. But I thought you should know. He's asked us to increase pain management to the point of... well, to the point where he won't be conscious much longer. He wants to sign a DNR. As his proxy, you could. I'll be there in an hour. She hung up before she could change her mind. Threw on clothes, called a cab, tried not to think about what she was doing. The hospital halls blurred past, and then she was at his door. Richard was there, papers spread on the bedside table, talking fast about stock transfers and board positions. James lay still, eyes closed, looking already gone. Just need your signature here and... Richard stopped when he saw her. You. Haven't you done enough? Get out. Excuse me. I'm his healthcare proxy. Get out. You can't. Security is one button away. Your choice. Richard gathered his papers, face ugly with rage. This isn't over. My lawyers will do nothing. Your father was competent when he made his choices. Now go. He left, and she was alone with James and the machines. She sat in her chair, studied his face. Without the animation of conversation, he looked ancient. Finished. I know you're awake, she said softly. His eyes opened. You came. I'm your proxy, apparently. When were you going to tell me? When you answered your phone. James. I'm sorry. For saying it. For feeling it. For making everything complicated when you deserved simple. His voice was thread-thin. I'll sign the DNR. Let you get back to your life. My life. She laughed, short and sharp. You know what my life is. Measured days in a measured apartment, waiting for grandchildren to visit, pretending I don't miss having someone to make soup for. Dolores. You had no right to love me. No right to make me care whether you take another breath. No right to. Her voice broke. No right to make me wonder what could have been. In another life, another time, another way. I know. But you did it anyway. Yes. Why? He turned his head, met her eyes fully. Because you're the first person in 40 years who saw me. Not my money, not my power, not what I could do for them. Just me. Broken, dying, trying too late to be better. His hand moved on the blanket, not reaching, just there. Because you brought me soup. It was just soup. No. It was grace. The word hung between them. Grace. Unearned. Undeserved. Transformative. I'm 72 years old, she said finally. I'm 78. You're dying. Yes. This is insane. Completely. I can't love you. I know. I mean it, James. I can't. I won't. But her hand was already moving, covering his on the blanket. His fingers turned, interlaced with hers, and she felt the rightness of it like coming home. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Don't sign the DNR. Take the interventions. Fight for whatever time we can steal. She squeezed his hand. "And I'll be here. For whatever this is. Whatever we are. Even if it's just days? Even then." She managed a watery smile. "But you're taking all your medications. No more of this giving up nonsense." "Yes, ma'am. And your son will get what he deserves. The company, the properties, all of it except what's yours. Let him have the empire. I just want—" He squeezed her hand. "This. You. Whatever time we get." "Okay," she said again, and meant it. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, two people held hands across decades of pain and found, impossibly, hope. "Dolores. I love you." This time, she didn't run. "I know. God help me, I know." 6 months later. The ribbon was bright yellow, the color of hope and spring sunshine. Dolores held the oversized scissors, looking out at the crowd gathered in front of the Whitfield, Washington Community Health Center. Neighbors, local politicians, church members, and media filled the street in front of the converted brownstone. "You ready, Mama?" Anita stood beside her, radiant with pride. As ready as anyone can be for miracles. She'd fought James on the name, insisted it should just be the Washington Center. But he'd been stubborn, one of many arguments they'd had in those stolen weeks that turned into months. The doctors called it remarkable. Richard called it suspicious. Dolores called it grace. "Before we cut this ribbon," she spoke into the microphone, her voice carrying strong and clear, "I want to tell you about second chances." In the crowd, she spotted him. Wheelchair-bound now, but there, bundled against the April breeze. Kevin stood behind him, protective as always. James's eyes found hers, and he smiled, that private smile she'd come to treasure. 40 years ago, I had a dream of becoming a nurse. Life had other plans. But sometimes, she paused, gathering herself. Sometimes life circles back. Sometimes the very thing that breaks you becomes the thing that remakes you. She thought of those hospital nights, reading medical journals aloud while James dozed, both of them pretending he wasn't getting stronger just to hear her voice. Thought of Richard's lawsuits, all dismissed. Of the prenup James had insisted on to protect her from future challenges. "I want you to love me for my charming personality, not my portfolio," he'd said, making her laugh until she cried. This center is about circles completing, about communities caring for their own, about health as a right, not a privilege. She looked directly at James. And about love finding ways we never expected. The crowd applauded. She cut the ribbon, yellow silk parting to reveal the future. Tours began, neighbors marveling at the examination rooms, the pediatric wing painted with dinosaurs. Marcus Jr. insisted, she explained. The pharmacy that would provide medications at cost. "It's perfect," James said when she finally made it to his side. His voice was stronger now, though still careful. "It's a start." She adjusted his blanket, the gesture automatic now. "How are you feeling?" Like a man who gets to see his dreams walk around. He caught her hand. "Dance with me." "James, you can't. Not with my feet. Here." He pulled her down to sit on the wheelchair's arm, her hand in his. "Sway with me." Someone had brought speakers for the celebration. Etta James crooned about love at last, and Dolores found herself swaying gently, there on the sidewalk, not caring who saw. "People are staring," she murmured. "Let them. How often do they see miracles?" "You're not a miracle. You're a stubborn old man who refused to die." "Refused to die before I could do this." He lifted her hand, kissed it. "Before I could see you in your element." She looked back at the center, at the line of mothers with children already forming. "It's really happening. Did you doubt?" "Every day." Richard is in Bermuda with his inheritance, probably complaining about the sand. James's eyes twinkled. He got what he wanted. Money without meaning. That's sad. Yes. But his choice. He studied her face. Any regrets? About this? Us? The gossip, the looks, the assumptions about why you're with me. Dolores considered. In the past months, she'd heard it all. Gold digger. Nurse with a savior complex. Foolish old woman falling for a deathbed con. But she'd also seen James fight through physical therapy to walk 10 steps for her birthday. Felt his tears when she'd finally said, "I love you" back. Watched him pore over pediatric health statistics with the same intensity he'd once reserved for profit margins. "No regrets," she said finally. "Except..." "What?" "I wish we'd had longer. To be young and foolish instead of old and foolish." "Ah, but would we have been wise enough to see each other then? I was an ass at 40. You were an ass at 78. But a reforming ass. That has to count for something." She laughed, the sound carrying over the celebration. "Come on. Let's go inside. You need to rest before the speeches." "One more minute." He held her hand tighter. "I want to remember this. You, with your dream made real behind you and your future ahead. Want to lock it away for the days when..." "No." She pressed a finger to his lips. "No talk of endings. Not today." "Okay. But Dolores, thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. For letting me see you. For soup and grace and second chances." "Thank you," she said softly, "for being worth them." They made their way inside, greeting visitors, explaining programs. The nurse practitioner students from Columbia, the first recipients of the Washington scholarships, demonstrated blood pressure checks. Local artists had donated murals. Church ladies staffed the reception desk, promising to know everyone's name within a month. "Ms. Washington?" A young woman approached, nervous. "I'm Keisha. From the neighborhood. I wanted to be a nurse once. Before I had my babies. Is it too late?" Dolores looked at her, 20-something, tired, hopeful, and saw herself 40 years ago. "It's never too late. Let me introduce you to our education coordinator." As she led Keisha away, she caught James watching her, pride naked on his face. He'd given her money, yes, but more than that, he'd given her the chance to be who she'd always been meant to be. The speeches came later. The mayor spoke about community investment. The health commissioner praised the innovative programs. But when James rolled to the microphone, the crowd quieted. "I spent my life building things," he said simply. "Companies, fortunes, empires of paper. But I never built anything that mattered until I met Dolores Washington." He found her in the crowd. "She taught me that the only wealth worth having is what you give away. The only legacy worth leaving is in the lives you change. This center isn't my gift to the community. It's hers. I just had the privilege of helping make it possible." He paused, gathering strength. "They say love at last is the sweetest. They're right. But love that builds, that heals, that transforms communities, that's the love that lasts beyond any one life. That's what Dolores Washington does. That's who she is. And that's why..." His voice broke slightly. "That's why I'm the luckiest dying man alive." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Dolores made her way to him, not caring about propriety, and kissed him softly. Cameras flashed. Tomorrow there would be headlines, "Billionaire and the Maid, a love story." Let them write what they wanted. The truth was better than any headline. "Ready to go home?" she asked. They'd bought a brownstone 3 blocks away, ground floor adapted for his wheelchair, upper floors for Anita and the grandchildren when they visited. "Our home," he corrected. "Yes." As they left, the center hummed with life behind them. Children played in the waiting room. Mothers filled out forms for free vaccinations. The future unfolded one small healing at a time. "Dolores," James said as Kevin helped him into the car. "Yes. We did good, didn't we?" She looked back at the center, at the yellow ribbons dancing in the breeze, at the security guard who'd already learned everyone's name, at the tears on Keisha's face as she clutched information about nursing programs. "Yeah, baby," she said, surprising herself with the endearment. "We did good." They drove home through streets Dolores had walked for 50 years, past the church where she'd found strength, past the corner store where she'd stretched dollars, past the playground where Anita had learned to climb. All of it looked different now, not changed but seen. The way James had taught her she deserved to be seen. The way she'd taught him to see. "How long do we have?" she asked quietly. The doctors were vague, but she knew he tracked every test, every marker. "Long enough," he said. "Long enough to see the center's first birthday. Long enough to dance at Marcus Jr.'s kindergarten graduation. Long enough to show you every day that you're loved. And after, you keep building, keep healing, keep being the light I was too blind to see 40 years ago." He squeezed her hand. "But that's after. This is now. And now is all we need." She squeezed back, and they rode home in comfortable silence, two people who'd found love in the last place they'd looked. In forgiveness, in grace, in the courage to begin again when beginning seemed impossible. Behind them, the Whitfield, Washington Community Health Center glowed in the afternoon sun, yellow ribbons waving like promises kept. Inside, healing had already begun, not just of bodies, but of communities, of old wounds, of hearts that had forgotten they could still learn to love. It was, Dolores thought, a very good beginning to their ending. And in the end, beginnings were all anyone really got. The chance to start again, to choose love over fear, to build something that would outlast the building. "I love you, James Whitfield," she said as they pulled up to their brownstone. "I love you, Dolores Washington, soon-to-be Whitfield," he replied. "Who said anything about marriage? A man can hope. A man can ask properly. Woman, will you?" "Yes." They laughed, and Kevin pretended not to notice as he helped them inside. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and medications, therapy and board meetings for the center. But tonight, there would be soup and conversation, memories and plans. Two people who'd found each other across decades of pain and discovered that love, indeed, could come at last. What walls do we build around our hearts, and what does it take to finally tear them down? Share with us your story in the comments below.